It didn't take much more than a bottle and 2 chairs to make a speakeasy. This is what Daniel Okrent said in his book, Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition. Today, join us for some stories. Get your own bottle, glass, or mug, and relax. This is Speak Easily, and I'm your host, Krista Stauffer.
It looks like maybe we have Josh as well, but his video is turned off. Josh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not rolling on video tonight, just on account of my daughter if she wakes up.
No, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. You're good.
Yeah, Josh, we understand. Ben's got
I've got a 2-year-old who's fighting sleep right now. She's upstairs. I can hear her hooting and hollering from down here. Yeah. So I imagine similar to what you guys actually hear sometimes. So, but,
We just have kids that don't like to sleep, and they're older, and they should know better. So we just, I'm the parent that's like, yeah, if it gets better, we haven't been there yet. So.
How do you not like to sleep, though? That's the part that I don't get. Like, they're like across the board anti-sleep. So I don't know.
Yeah, they like to tell us. It's really fun because they'll come out and be like, I can't sleep. And we'll say, well, obviously, because you're standing here. It's very hard to sleep when you come out of your bed to tell us things. So, yeah.
My 10-year-old says that she thinks she's missing something. That's why she won't go. Yeah. Well, because she's like, well, why can't I stay up? You guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, because we're done with you. We've clocked it.
Right.
We have punched out this evening. Sorry.
Probably this shows how great of a mom I am. But I think one of my favorite parts of this pandemic has been like, hey, Mom. And I just say, she's not here right now and leave the room. It's been great.
That works?
No. I'm still there. Oh, my goodness. Well, we're really excited tonight. I've got to tell you this first off. So James and Josh are here with us, and we're calling this Spook Easily tonight.
Did you come up with that?
Yeah.
I have to give her props because that sounds like the kind of joke that I would make. And honestly, I was a little bummed out that I didn't think of it before she did. So
There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing, and I think I told you guys this in the email, that I don't record my podcasts from home if I can help it, simply just for noise and dogs and people that in my family that feel the need to come on.
I think sanity's on that list too, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the main one. So I record here in my building, which is the Columbus Performing Arts Center downtown, which is notoriously one of very haunted buildings downtown. So Ben may be getting a phone call when I leave here tonight, like, just stay on the phone with me. I'm freaking out.
So if the door behind you opens, are we supposed to tell you?
No, I'll see it and then scream, and then I will never work here again. So maybe I should put an email out to my coworkers, like, if anything happens tonight, I'm just done. So, oh my goodness. So you guys, we're really excited. We really wanted to do something like a scary type podcast. So not saying it has to be scary, but you are essentially ghost hunters.
Yeah, pretty much. It's ghost hunters, ghostbusters. I think Josh and I have been called many things.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, I have to ask, and Josh, I want to get you in on this too. So so let me start first. I'm so excited. Can you tell? I'm also nervous about a ghost popping in. So thanks for bringing that up, James. Now I'm freaking out about the door behind me. But where are you both from? Josh, you go.
Yeah, Josh, you go first.
I'm originally from Columbus. I've spent a lot of time growing up in Kentucky. So that's I think what really kind of steeped me in like just odd superstitions and legends. And then I moved back to the Columbus area with my grandparents when I was probably around 8.
Okay. All right.
And I was born and raised in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley, which is a weird, twisted area to begin with. And I grew up in the shadow of Tarrytown, New York, which is actually Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And so I grew up hearing all about the legend of Sleepy Hollow and had twisted elementary school teachers that tried to convince us that the Legend of Sleepy Hollow was a true story.
Okay.
And the fun thing is that we would go out there for the field trip, and they would point out the characters that were actually buried in the cemetery. I found out later that Washington Irving borrowed the names off the tombstones because he liked that, and he liked the setting, so he just incorporated it. So at a very early age, I found myself thinking, okay, well, that's not a true ghost story.
Yeah.
What are the true ghost stories? And so I got involved with my first ghost organization at the age of 18. And we were just a bunch of people that got together and looked for ghosts. We didn't have, I mean, this was, now I'm going to feel really old, but this was in 1985 that I started doing it. I moved to Ohio via Atlanta, which is why my accent is all over the place. And when I moved here in 1999, I was just looking to get involved with another ghost group, but there weren't any. And I was, I guess, naive and arrogant enough to think I'm going to start my own ghost group. And so I started the Ghosts of Ohio in 1999, and it's been running strong ever since. And along the way, we find people like Josh and his wife, Sarah, that have the same sort of interest in it, and we bring them along, and then we become the ghost hunters and run around looking for ghosts.
That's amazing. I guess my question for both of you is, I mean, not everybody is born into wanting to seek ghosts, right? So, Josh, what was your experience? Like, what kind of turned your interest into this hobby?
I think most of it, again, was just really weird, superstitions, legends that, my family, they would talk about. The house that we eventually moved into, when I lived with my grandparents, we just had all kinds of weird things, that would happen. It just really, made me think one day, there's got to be more, to life after, people pass. Like there has to be something else.
Yeah.
And it just, it kind of piqued my interest. I lived right around the corner from Green Lawn Cemetery. So, it's funny. I tell everybody that's where I learned to, drive a car. I figured what's the worst I could do, It just,
over.
exactly, and it's just, I was just always that weird kid that, I just always thought there had to be more to, like I tell everybody, you can't destroy energy. That's one thing that, we all kind of agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so what happens when that energy actually leaves the body? It has to go somewhere.
True. And then I guess my question too is like, I mean, obviously now it probably doesn't, but did it freak you out, those experiences when you were growing up? You said there were like weird things that happened in the house. Did it scare you, or was it just fascinating?
I think at that time I was just young and dumb, and I was like, that I'm just more fascinated by it. Like, I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, I'd go around telling everybody like, hey, my house is haunted. You guys should come over and check this out. And I mean, I don't know. It never felt, threatening or menacing or, really you were never off put by it. It was just, we just had an extra house guest that we couldn't see that would kind of pop in and out and move things around the house, open doors. And it was just fascinating.
Would they do chores? That would be, I would really enjoy if that were to happen.
I wish.
Do either of you feel, we have a good friend of ours that has had ghostly experiences his whole life and has talked about them on numerous occasions. Do you ever feel like they're attracted to certain people more so than others?
I think, yeah, I think definitely. I think that there is a certain, over the years, I've kind of adopted this mentality of, well, why don't I put myself in the ghost shoes and see, because a lot of times people will report this activity and you're like, that makes absolutely no sense. And so I try to come at it from a different angle and think, okay, well, if I suddenly passed away and came back as a ghost. And I hadn't read, the Beetlejuice book, the guidebook for the recently, deceased or departed. There you go. Yep. There you go. Well, see, you would know what to do then. But if I hadn't read it, how would I know how to act or to make contact with the living? And I do think that there is a lot of things that take place might be, I'm a firm believer in a lot of times when they have those EVPs, you get the ghost voice and they're garbled or they sound really angry. Well, maybe it's just kind of ticked off because it can't get the message through. So I think very Sixth Sense like that if I were a ghost and I was trying to get a message through and all of a sudden I was like, well, wait, that person over there actually sees me or is actually pretending as though they know what I want. So I think I would be drawn to that person. And I think there could be something to that. Another member of the Ghosts of Ohio, Mark, had a really interesting theory that he put forward to me, because I always say that I very rarely see a ghost. Other people are always, it really annoys me because I've got to drive 2.5 hours to this haunted place and sit in a dark basement for like 6 hours, drive home in the middle of the night. And I'm like, what? These other people are just sitting down and having conversations over coffee with a ghost. Why can't I do that? Why am I always having to go forth, and I really want to see one? And Mark said, it could be that you just have to look at something differently. And when you do, you all of a sudden see it. And what he used as an example, and he's trying to get me to do this and I can't, but those 3D pictures where you stare at them, I don't know if you guys can actually see the 3D things. I never could, but everybody that I talked to said they would stare at it and they would never see anything. And then one day they would look at it a little different and this 3D image popped out. And then it was always there, that every time they looked at it, that 3D image was immediately there. So I think that's an interesting theory, that perhaps the people who were able to see ghosts or believe that they are seeing ghosts, they've just looked at something a bit differently and now they're able to see them. I think that also comes into play. I believe that, the old theory where they say that, children see ghosts more often than adults. I think there could be something to that, if for no other reason that with children, the weight of the world and reality has not crushed them yet and told them those are not real. The same thing with animals. Animals, they say, can see ghosts. I think there could be something to that, because an animal doesn't really think about something being imaginary or not real. They have to accept everything as being a potential threat. So 20 minutes earlier, you asked a question that I think I answered, but basically, yes, I do think that there are certain people that are able to see ghosts more than other people. And I think the theory there is that they're just looking at things differently and might be drawing more attention to themselves, because the ghosts are like, hey, check that person out. They can actually see us.
Right. So because you do this, you said you haven't seen one yet, but definitely you've felt things, obviously, that would keep you interested, I would assume.
Yeah, and I have seen things. It's that I wish, and Josh has probably heard me wish this many times, but I wish it could be like the reality TV shows where they're not even out of the car and, things are levitating and they're getting pushed and knocked downstairs and the ghosts are making them write bad checks and all this wondrous stuff that, and I go in there and I'm like, all right, here I am, and I'm always convinced that the ghosts are hiding, they're messing with me. And then, they're going to wait till I leave and laugh at me. But have experienced the main thing that I've experienced when I've seen a ghost. The interesting thing is, I don't think it's a ghost when I see it. When we go out on our investigations, we try to make it as controlled as possible. And so we will say, okay, for this one period of time, this group is going to go into the living room and they will stay there for 45 minutes. This other group will go. So we'll know exactly where people are. And there's been numerous times where I've been sitting at, we call it our command center because it sounds very, very, but it's basically wherever we can find a table to put our equipment. But there's been numerous times where I will be sitting there and say, look off to the corner and there's someone standing there It has a head. It's not floating. It's it's a person. And I look back to say, who do I have to yell at? Because they're not supposed to be anybody in that room. And in that split second, when I look down and then look back, they're gone.
Huh.
So there's been numerous times where I've encountered that. I've heard things. A lot of the things that I think could be evidence that I've experienced are when afterwards, when we go back and we listen to the audio or the video, and there's voices in the room with me that are answering questions, but I didn't hear it in real time. So where is that coming from? So those are the little nuggets. They're few and far between, but those are the nuggets that, as a group, what I love about the Ghosts of Ohio is that I've kind of handpicked everybody that comes from all different backgrounds with all different beliefs. So we have total skeptics to true believers, people who think they're psychic to people who don't think they're psychic at all. And what I love to do is whenever we get evidence, if you will, from an investigation, we kind of have our monthly meeting. We throw it out there. The different people will present it. Like Josh will say, hey, I got this audio recording. This is where we were. What do you think? And then we fight, friendly, but what I'm looking, kind of,
Right.
you defend your evidence. But what I'm looking for is both the believers and the skeptics to rip it all apart. And if we can walk away from that going, I don't know what that is, that to me is compelling evidence, if you will.
Interesting. Josh, what brought your interest, besides the growing up, what brought you to Ghost of Ohio? You and your wife, because you guys do this together.
I've always, I think, been, to make a long story short, Ohio for this weird brief period of time was a very, I don't want to say neglected, but there was just a lot of bad information out there. It was really hard to kind of, sift through what was legit, what wasn't legit. I mean, people were at most points in time were just copying and pasting stuff that they've read on the internet.
Right.
It was more of, I think it was James did Weird Ohio. And that from that moment on, I just, always kept up with like what he put out, what books he was writing. Just kind of pretty much stalked him for a while. And then exactly. And I think it was a Westerville library, like a meet and greet with the authors that me and Sarah came to.
Okay.
And we actually met, face to face and, talked for a while. And I kind of felt bad because I'm pretty sure we took up his whole afternoon and no one else really got to come up and, say much to him. But it was just, you could really tell, this wasn't just a regular, fly by night group. I mean, they take everything seriously. Everything's real researched. You can definitely feel that it's not just, not everything's taken for face value.
Right. So when you as a group go into an investigation, how does that happen? Is it somebody that contacts you, or are you going to a place that has reportedly been haunted? Something like, how does the process start for your group?
It varies. There are a lot of sort of pay to play sites where they've got historical sites and things like that that are not just in Ohio, but across the United States, where you can sort of rent it out for the evening.
Okay.
And, you basically pay your whatever and you go in and you ghost hunt for the night. And we do those, but those are more for, I guess, fun and more to just kind of like hone our craft, if you will, because we're not really, we're going for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we do actually get, and it's interesting because it's one of the reasons I really wanted to start my own group is the private investigations. And those are the things that if you go on our social media accounts, and you won't find any information about that other than we offer them.
Yeah.
And that are people who have private businesses or homes that reach out to us looking for answers. And that's something that, and it is one of the main reasons that Josh and Sarah were invited into the Ghosts of Ohio, because they are very, not only passionate about ghost hunting, but they are very compassionate. And the idea is that when we go into people's homes, we have confidentiality agreements where we will not talk about specifics, but you have to go into their homes, and these people they're looking for answers. And so you have to go in there, and a lot of times you have to fall back on, you become part therapist, part psychologist, part like a home inspector, because you've got to go through there. But those are to me the most intriguing, because they are a lot of these sort of public places that you can go into and pay for. Some of the activity that takes place in there is a bit played up, because they are, and I can't fault them for that. They are trying to make money to repair the buildings and that sort of thing. But when you go into a private residence or a private business, you tend to really find evidence there, because these people not only don't really have anything to gain financially, but most of the time they don't want people to know, and rightfully so. There was a time period where it was cool to be known as, the owner of the local haunted house, but now it's, legally speaking, you could actually stigmatize a property if you did go in there and said, there's a ghost there. So again, 15 minutes early, you asked the question, but the process normally starts with people that reach out to us through social media or through our website, or a friend of a friend. As I said, we've been out there since 1999. So it's interesting because we've probably given away, tens of thousands of magnets and pens and all sorts of things. The return on the investment is, maybe it happens 10 or 15 years down the road when somebody at a party says to somebody, I think there's a ghost in our house. And they're like, well, wait a second, there's this group that'll come out there. So, and interestingly enough, is a lot of times when we go into these private residences, I call it's equating it to like ghostly fishing. We will try to do research when to find out, when is the activity happening? Is it only at certain times? Is it only in certain rooms? And then we will try to do historical research to see if something happened on that property or in that room at that period of time, to see if that could result in a haunting. But a lot of times our investigations will take 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more investigations, because we will go out there, see if we can get anything, look at that, and then a lot of our investigations aren't these sort of one-shot deals. They're continuing. And a lot of it is, we will go out and say, we couldn't find anything, but you know what? Keep a journal. Anything that's going on in your house, just write it down, because that will sometimes open up new doorways for us to explore, to try to find an explanation for what's taking place.
Well, I can imagine, you said it was like part counseling, because I can imagine if you know that there is something there, I think that would change everything for the person.
It does. And that's one of the reasons why, as a group, the Ghosts of Ohio, we will never present a homeowner with evidence and say, your house is haunted. And I personally have issues with anyone that goes into someone's house and says, you have a ghost here, because for exactly the reasons that you just brought up, you have just shattered their world, because an expert came in and said, I have a ghost. What we do is we will present them with things that we could not explain, after we've had our knockdown fights, and we will say, these are the 3 things we can't explain. And we will give them copies of it, and then they can do what they want with it. Okay. We obviously don't say them, and because of this, we've got a little stamp here. It says certified haunted, we sign it. We don't have that. We basically tell them, do with it what you will, because the worst thing that I think can happen is someone looks to us for answers, and we make it worse. We go in there, and one of the things that we don't do is what's very popular on these shows is we don't challenge it. We don't go in there and tell the ghost, these are the shows that I end up rooting for the ghosts, when they go in and they're like, oh, why don't you hit me? And we're like, get him.
Just knock him
don't
out.
do that, because if you think about it, again, if you put yourself in the ghost shoes, if you were haunting a place that you loved when you were alive and you were content there, and all of a sudden someone comes barging in and starts yelling at you, dance, do this, do something for me, you would be angry too. And so the worst thing I think we could do is go in there, make something worse, say, yeah, you got a ghost here, and see ya. We're nonprofit, so sorry, we got to go. So we don't, we allow the homeowner to decide on their own what they think of what we'd uncovered.
Do you find that most of the people that contact you, is it because they're more fascinated or more scared? Like what, or is it about equal?
I think for me, as the paranormal pappy here, I think it's kind of ebbed and flowed over the years.
Yeah.
Back when I first started, before before these ghost shows really started, most people just wanted to know they weren't crazy.
Okay.
So if you came in and said, well, actually it's because you have natural gas and not the person that the house has natural gas. Sorry.
I mean, I do, but
but they that went south really fast there. I apologize for that.
this is how we
But
roll.
they feel that they're being watched or something in the basement, and you find out that their dryer vent is hanging off or something. You find a natural explanation for what's going on. Back then, they were fine with it. They wanted to know that they weren't crazy.
Right.
When the ghost shows came out, it suddenly became cool to have. So it kind of switched
Yeah.
to, they didn't want an explanation, they wanted validation.
Okay.
So and now, and Josh, I'd love to hear what you think about this, but it seems to me that we're at a spot right now where um we don't get as many investigations as we used to, because there are so many ghost shows.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks I have a ghost and I'm now going to validate it myself. So they've watched a few shows and they take out a piece of equipment that will make you think that there's a ghost because they don't operate the way they're supposed to. And so I think it changes as it goes by. But the people who contact us for the private investigations, by and large, they are still looking for answers. Again, we've been around for so long that when they come to us, back when I first started this in Ohio, we would get a couple of people that were trying to put one over on us. But I think now, if nothing else, we're looked upon as being the people that we take this very seriously. And as my dad used to say, I ain't got no time for fooling. So most of the people that do come to us, at least if it isn't really a ghost, it's a real issue. There is something that's going on in their house that we can see, that we can help with.
Wow. But do you
It's deep, isn't it?
It is. I mean, again, what is so fascinating to me is that here, I think of those situations here in this building, and I know that most theaters have energies anyway. That it's, it maybe because it's a place where people come to gather. It's gonna make me sad. Came to gather. No, we can't. But that, I've been told by several different people that there's 3 ghosts in this building. And I've heard the stories, and it's like, okay. So when I first started working here, I was scared by that because I usually will work by myself. I was scared by it, but then after a while I was like, I'm just going to let them know that I'm here to work on theater because that's what I do. So, I mean, it sounds weird, but now every time I come in the building, I say, it's just me, I'm just here to work. And I go up to my space and just kind of leave it alone. But I've felt very calm ever since I started doing that. Is that kind of a legit feeling?
If you're calm, sure, it's a legit feeling.
I mean, I probably would be more scared of the people that are actually outside of the building,
But again, if you put yourself in the ghost shoes, the thing that I've always found interesting is when people say, well, aren't you scared of ghosts? For me. And I've never been scared of them. I actually, by and large, feel very sad for ghosts. And we've all heard that old ghost story about, the husband and wife, they bought their dream house and then he went away to fight in the war and he never came back. And her ghost is now seen up, on the widow's walk or walking around there waiting for the husband that's never coming back. You break that story apart. That is heartbreaking. How bad would it stink if your loved one passed away or didn't come back. And then when you passed away, you made a conscious or unconscious decision to not go to the light or wherever you're supposed to go, to stay behind.
Wait.
And now he's still not coming back and you are all alone. I mean, that are the stories that break my heart. And so if you think about it, you were kind of afraid of something, but once you said, okay, I know you guys are here, you were kind of acknowledging them. Because how bad would it stink if all of us, when we're dead and gone, we're forgotten? That to me is hell, you know? And so if you're a ghost and you're hanging around, sometimes maybe all it needs is a little acknowledgement. And by you acknowledging it, all of a sudden it feels better because the ghost is like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
You know, we tell people that the most important thing that they can do if they believe there's something in their house and they're frightened of it is to think about why are you frightened of it? And most of the time it turns out because it's just fear of the unknown. It's very rare that it turns out that a ghost is actually, you know, knocking you downstairs and doing things like that. It's just fear of the unknown. And so we will try to educate them in that it's like, it's your house. You know, take back your house. There's no reason to be scared of it. Set down those guidelines.
Yeah.
And again, that's where what I was talking about earlier, the compassion that Josh and Sarah had was really something that I thought far beyond, you know, they had really cool ghost hunting equipment. They've been doing it for a long time and knew all these ghostly places to go. It was that there was the compassion, not only towards the living, but also the dead. So that really I thought was a great fit.
Interesting. Have either of you ever experienced a moment of being scared during these times?
That's a good question.
Besides, unless you talked about natural gas, if there's a natural gas leak, yeah. But don't light a candle. But anything scary or experiences that frighten you, at least for the time being?
The one that do you have one, Josh?
I do, but I was gonna say you can go first.
Yeah, I've been rambling on though here. I'm stealing all the time here. I'm trying to think of how to make this a short story because when the event happened that I'm going to describe, I wasn't scared when it happened or even afterwards. And it was probably about a year later when at one of my presentations, somebody said, "What's the weirdest thing that ever happened to you?" And I told this story and then went, "That's really scary." And it has frightened me ever since. It's the story that everybody is always like, tell that story because it frightens everybody. And it's the one that, and now I'm not going to be able to sleep again tonight. So thanks.
Don't do that.
It's a story that when I do tell it, I always preface it by saying, I want someone to explain this to me because I can't explain it. And it didn't happen as far as I know to me. But again, to just condense this story, the group was at Waverly Hills, which is, it's in a big old TB hospital. Okay. It's abandoned. It's a very famous place that it's in, I was going to say Louisville, but it's Louisville. Louisville. There you go. And when we went down there the first time, what I like to do is when we were given the tour is to ask, well, where are people reporting? Where can I go to have the best chance of experiencing something? And they said to go up onto the 4th floor because they said that is home to two things. One is that people reported seeing a doppelganger or a double. So basically people would, like if we were on an investigation, we're walking around and we look over and we see Josh sitting at a table. Again, he's got his head not floating. And we might talk to Josh, he might talk back, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just sitting there. But then we walk further and then we find out that Josh was outside the building. He was never in that room. So it's the idea that there's different theories. A ghost is disguising itself as someone, or, you know, it's got all different theories. But they said there was one of those up on the 4th floor. They also said that the 4th floor was home to what they called the creeper. And I always have to preface this, here comes the nightmare fuel, but it was an all black human shape that crawled around. I'll wait till you finish your drink there because you don't spit it to camera. It was an all black figure that crawled around on its hands and knees.
Oh gosh.
On the ceiling.
Nope.
And so
I'm out.
so they said if you wanted to see the creeper, what you should do is, and the fourth floor is just, the whole building is abandoned, but the fourth floor is just doors on either side, which are just patient rooms. The doors are gone. Everything is gone from there. It's just wide open.
Right.
But they said if you get a group and you go up and you have one person stand at one end of the hallway, and then you have the rest of the group go to the other end of the hallway, and you face each other and turn off your lights, that the creeper will come creeping up behind the one person who's by himself.
Okay.
So I said, I'll be the bait, I'll go do it. So
How did you lose that bet?
I took it because again, my whole thing is that, well, this is what I want to have happen. Right. But, so we went up to the fourth floor. And again, I'm just trying to get to the good part here, but there were four of us. There were, I was the bait. I was at one end of the hallway, and two guys and a girl went to the other end of the hallway, and we faced each other. And I had a night vision camera that I had in my hands. And then I have this, it sounds really weird, but it's really cool. I have this headlamp, that I wear, but it's on a swivel because I always do the Gremlins thing and turn it on and blind everybody with the bright light. So I tilt it down. So it's always illuminating down in front of me. So we went to opposite ends, we faced each other. And then what I did was I bent down, I put the camera down between my legs.
Yeah.
I stood up and I turned off the headlamp, and I just crossed my arms and I stood like this in the dark.
Okay.
On either side are just open doorways on either side. Okay.
Yeah.
So got the scene, right? So here it comes. So after about 20 minutes, I don't feel weird. I don't hear anything weird. I don't see anything. There's nothing going on.
Right.
And then I hear one of the guys say, "Where did he go?" And the girl said, "I think he went in that room over there." And they went, "Jim?" And I said, "Yeah." And then the G-rated version of what they said was, "Oh, poop.
You're allowed to cuss.
That wasn't him. Oh, shit. That wasn't him." So it's funny because what one guy and one girl, they said they saw the same exact thing. The other guy claimed he didn't see anything, and he quit the group shortly after. But they claim that they saw, you ready for this? After watching me stand in the middle of the hallway, they saw me turn on my headlamp, illuminate my entire body, bend down, pick up my camera, stand up, and walk off to my left into one of the patient rooms, leaving an empty hallway.
Really?
I never moved.
Huh. That's
So that's the thing that scares me, because I didn't move.
Yeah.
But they, and one of them is still in the ghost group, Mark, and he to this day says, no, they thought that I had gotten bored, and you're supposed to announce I'm going in this room or something, but they thought that I got bored because it looked like me, and I picked up my camera and I took the light with me when I went in there.
Okay.
And so of course I asked her, I was like, well, how did I come back? Because they said there was an empty hallway, and they said that when they had the conversation, where did he go? I think he went in that room there, that their eye lines went off to the right towards that room. And when they called out to me, they thought that I was going to call back and go, yeah, I'm in this room, I'm bored or whatever. But when I called back and answered and said, yeah, from the middle of the hallway, they looked back to the middle of the hallway and I was back.
Interesting. Yeah, that's completely unexplainable.
Yeah, I don't. And again, if it was just that I was telling that story of what I thought happened to me, you'd be like, well, he had a couple of adult beverages before the investigation or something like that. He's on his meds, off his meds, what have you. But that was seen independently by multiple people. And I kind of sleep because I tell myself that nothing happened to me. I never left.
Right.
The ghost or whatever was doing something to their heads. And so but I don't know. I can't even say if that's truly something ghostly, but that's been the one thing that's actually scared me, but not at the time. I was just like, that's crazy. That's weird. But the more I think about it, I'm like, where did I go?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Cool. Have you had anything that scared you?
Kind of like what James was saying, not in that particular moment, but then looking back on it, um, this was it. I was doing a public hunt at Mansfield at the old reformatory.
Okay.
Um, I was supposed to be meeting a couple friends up there. They were totally kind of new to the idea. I was probably maybe 3, 4 years into it, pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Um, they ended up backing out the last minute. I couldn't find anybody to go because at that point in time, and I think they still require it. You have to bring your driver's license. If you're switching over your spot, you have to make prior arrangements. It was just too late to even consider doing that. So I was like, I'll just go, wander around. This was, I want to say it was the 1st of November. So it was already pretty cold. So I was like, I don't plan on staying real long. There shouldn't be a lot of people here. I've already paid for my spot. I'm not backing out. This is, it's one of my favorite places to go. So, kind of long story short, we did the tour. I was kind of wandering around, doing my own thing. They usually deliver pizza, I think around like 10 or 11, give or take.
Yeah.
So I decided, all right, everyone's going to be, they should be down into, the cafeteria, the old bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is going to be the perfect time for me to go out, get away from all these, screaming, people that are just making so much noise, and they're pretty much just urban exploring at this point. So I've always, the building, it's kind of weird to say it, but it's like I'll usually, if I just wander around a building, I'll find a spot that is just kind of like, this kind of feels a little weird. I'm going to hang around here for a while.
Yeah.
So I ended up in, it's the admin on the 3rd floor on the east side of the building. That's where like there's a notorious like chair room that if you go in there and move the chair, sit in the ghost chair, he gets like all bent out of shape and he'll either push you out of the chair or whatever happens.
Right.
So I trying to remember correctly. I wanted to say when it was still a working prison, the warden was living there. That area, they would have like the guest bedrooms, and at the end of this one hallway, they had a stage. So they would use that area for entertainment, what have you. So I had walked, just walking around this area. It just felt different.
Mm-hmm.
There was another couple that had come up behind me. And that's why I was like, I don't want to mess up your evidence. I don't want to, be walking around. I'm going to go sit in the chair room.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, not a problem. And as I'm walking back towards to try to, paint the picture of it, there's a hallway to my right that dead ends. There is the chair room, and directly in front of it, you can kind of see everyone coming and going. And there's stairs that lead up to the chapel.
Okay.
And I mean, you can see everyone that comes in and out from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking back down the hallway, I pass a guy, and I didn't think much about it at the time. He had on blue like work pants and a blue shirt. I acknowledged him. He really didn't, usually they nod their head, they say something, nothing. The guy he looked like he was on a mission. He kept going. Didn't think anything about it. I sat down in the chair room. I was watching, I could hear people, making a ruckus up in the chapel area. I'm like, all right, well, this kind of sucks. They're going to be coming this way. So, I go to it, trying to think time frame, maybe 10 minutes go by. And then that other couple that I'd previously spoke to, they had started coming that way. I mean, you can hear everything in that area. And they're like, well, did you see that guy? I was like, yeah, I passed him. They're like, well, he went into, there was a far room right by the stage. And they're like, he went in there and he never came out. I was like, I never saw him come back out. So as we're standing there talking, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, he didn't make any noise when he went by. Like there wasn't any footsteps. There was nothing. At that moment in time, I'm like, well, that was just odd. Like he had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But then looking back at it, there's nowhere that he could have possibly went that he wouldn't have doubled back out that I would have seen him.
Right.
And it kind of it bothered me for a while, and I was like, I don't know, it had to be explainable. Well, fast forward a few years, I've got a really good friend who volunteers at Mansfield,
Mm-hmm.
and I was telling him about it, and as soon as I said, he had on like the blue work pants, he had on like a blue work shirt. He's like, you saw what the warden would consider a houseboy. These were inmates that were really privileged. It was kind of like a reward system that they would run errands for the warden. They actually at some point, they one of them taught the warden's son how to drive a car. Like these were like really well respected prisoners, in the system for
Right.
the wardens. They were like, his go-to people. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, that gets reported all the time. He was like, it was just so odd though that, you know, I was convinced I saw a real person. Like he
Yeah.
was as clear as what, we are now. And it didn't dawn on me until I thought about it. And I was talking to that other couple, like, he didn't make any noise.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't think about that in the moment. But then after the fact, I was like, I just passed a ghost and I didn't really have anything to say to him.
He didn't even say hi to you. How rude.
And that's what I mean. That was the only thing that kind of struck me as odd. I was like, well, he must, be in a bad mood. He must be looking for somebody, because it's not uncommon for, people to get separated in a place like that. And then,
Right.
there's really no good plan to meet back up. But
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it never really freaked me out until after the fact. And it was just the whole thing that still sticks out is just he didn't make any noise. Like there was no footsteps, there was nothing.
That's weird. Oh my goodness. What are some of your favorite haunts in the Columbus area? Your favorite haunted places?
My favorite is the Thurber House.
Okay.
That's one that's fascinated me, and it it kind of everything came full circle because when I was a kid growing up in New York, I read the story The Night the Ghost Got In,
Yeah.
which I think is required reading in Ohio, I think now when you're a kid. But I was always fascinated going back to the whole legend of Sleepy Hollow. Is it true? Is it not? I mean, I can almost recite the entire story, The Night the Ghost Got In. And to me, I was always fascinated with the idea that that story starts with the night the ghost got in, November 17th, 1915. So it actually gives you the
Yeah.
date
Mhm.
that the ghost got in. And I had always wanted to know, did that really happen?
Mhm.
And so I had been trying for years to get the Thurber House in one of my books,
Yeah.
simply because I just wanted to get in there and actually try to find out if it really happened.
Yeah.
And they would have none of it. And then and the current director there, I just happened to hit at the right time, and she contacted me, and I said, I'm writing this book, Central Ohio Legends and Lore. I'd love to include the Thurber House, but I have to know, did that really happen? Because James Thurber, he put a lot of specifics in things, and he had a lot of things that really did happen. And then he kind of, I don't know, exaggerated many things as well. But I said, did that event really happen? And Anne said it did. And you can still go to the Thurber House. And if Anne's there, or I don't know if anybody else will, but Anne certainly knows, if you say Weird Willis sent you, she will show you the documents that Thurber actually did believe that that he had a ghostly experience that night. So much so that he would, and it's in his writings, his personal letters, that he was at the top of the stairs outside of the bathroom when he heard footsteps running around the dining room table and running up the stairs at him. And there are sort of diary type entries where Thurber would say that he would often go and sit at the top of the stairs in the middle of the night and say, "Is there anyone down there?"
Mhm.
Because he wanted to have that encounter again.
Yeah.
And so I became so fascinated with that I was like, wow, now I know the date because it was November 17th, 1915. I can go and dig into the research and find out what happened. Who was this ghost? And so I thought, here it is. I'm going to find evidence and become rich, famous, and arrogant and get all this research. And absolutely nothing happened on that property on November 17th, 1915. And then I was very sad. But then I went and I read the second paragraph of The Night the Ghost Got In, which said, the sounds or the footsteps began at 1:15 in the morning. So then I thought maybe that's actually the 18th, not the 17th.
Oh.
So went back again and found that in the early morning hours of November 18th, on a year before the Thurber House was even built. But what was on the property was the UNPC Columbus Mental Institution. And in the early morning hours of November 18th, it burnt to the ground and patients were killed. And there are reports in the newspaper of patients, sadly, on fire, running in circles, which does mirror the sounds that Thurber heard. So I was just, wrote that, and I was just so intrigued with that as a story that Ann and I got to talking and decided, it would be a really cool fundraiser for her. For me, I just wanted to experience this, but I said, why don't we do a fundraiser? All the proceeds can go to the Thurber House and we will do a raffle, and the winner of the raffle and a guest will get to spend the night inside the Thurber House with the Ghosts of Ohio on the anniversary of the night the ghost got in.
Yeah.
And at the time when Thurber had his experience, we will stick the prize winner and the guest in the same exact spot that Thurber stood to see if they would have the same experience. Because to me, that's all the reasons I got into this.
Yeah.
Scary ghost stories, history, and the idea that they could collide together. And so the first year we've done that several years. The first year that we did it, the contest winners were not very into it.
Yeah.
They were like, well, we just have to stand. I mean, they were more into the giving money to the Thurber House, and they, as opposed to doing an actual ghost hunt. And absolutely nothing happened. The next year, I've never actually asked them, Josh, but we'll have to ask them. But friends of Josh, who he actually goes ghost hunting with, they won the second year. And they were totally excited. They were into it. They had their own equipment. They were just really, really excited. And kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier, when we went there and Josh and I had taken separate cars that night, and we were just waiting for Ann to sort of open up the Thurber House for us. So I got out of the car and Josh got out of his car, and we were like, is Ann here? Because the lights weren't on. And then Ann came out and she goes, are you guys coming in? And we were like, well, we didn't know if you were here or not. And she goes, there's something going on. She goes, it feels weird. And we were like, oh, we got to go in. And so we went in, and Josh, which is another reason why I look to him on investigations, is what he touched upon earlier. I can say to Josh, where do you feel something? And sometimes he's like, I don't feel anything. And other times he's like, I feel something over here. It was up in the front parlor where Ann had felt weird and where Josh said, yeah, something feels off here. Mm-hmm. So we ended up having the equipment was kind of acting weird. And when it came time for the exact time when the ghost got in, Ann was with us, and we were all down in our command center, which was in the middle of the living room. But we put the contest winners at the top of the stairs, and we could see them. And we could also see the dining room where the footsteps supposedly happened. Well, we had them stay up there for like a half hour. We didn't hear anything. We had microphones and studio microphones and all this stuff. And we didn't think anything happened. And they came down and they said, well, you guys are still here. I'm paraphrasing. We were like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, we thought you were leaving. We heard you like dragging the equipment across the floor and coming in and out of the door. And we were like, what are you talking about? And they play back their audio, and you do hear something being dragged like across the floor. And they even remark to each other, is that them? And they're like, yeah, that's them. It's very loud.
Yeah.
our microphones, when you go back and listen to it, you hear what sounds like footsteps. There's things being dragged across what is the dining room floor, which we were standing next to, and there was nobody in that room. There's also a wooden door that opens and closes, and you hear what sounds like a woman talking. You can see us on the video. So at that point in time, nobody's talking, nobody's moving. So we were like, holy cow, did we just experience a version of what James Thurber experienced? And so it's fascinating. And on top of that, it goes back to the first time we did it, same sort of experiment, but the people weren't really into it. So did they change the atmosphere? Where the ghosts kind of like, we ain't going to hang out with you guys. You're kind of boring. But the next time we did it and people were really excited, where they're like, all right, we're going to make an appearance here. So I don't know, but I do know what came out of that is that when we go into investigations, because of that particular night at the Thurber house, when we go and do investigations, we set up all of the equipment, and then we take 15 to 30 minutes to almost decompress, do a relaxation, almost like a self-guided meditation, to basically say, when I get home I got to pay the mortgage, I got to get up early, but right now I got to put myself in the right frame of mind. I'm here. I want to actually reach out to the other side. And if they're here, communicate with them. And we seem to get better results when we do that. It's kind of shutting out the outside world and just focusing on the moment, which I will say, I have no idea how to do that in these troubled times. So I don't know if it would work, but it's something that came out of it. It was, again, going back to what I was rambling on about earlier. It's people have been looking for ghosts forever. And there's not that one piece of evidence that everybody can look at and say, that's a ghost. So we're clearly not doing everything right. So how can we look at things differently, or how can we make ourselves more receptive, or be nicer to the ghosts, or change what we're throwing out to the universe to see if it answers back? And let's change, and I keep going back to it, but that's who everybody in the Ghosts of Ohio is open to, is changing, because we openly admit we don't have all the answers, but that's the fun part, to try to find them and to come up with a way to find those answers. It's the thrill of the chase, really.
Absolutely. Have you guys visited any of the theaters in Columbus? I mean, there's not that many, but have you done any time in any of the local theaters?
I have done 2 that were technically private investigations, so I can't talk about those. Yeah, just 2, and did not really get anything substantial. But I think we need to come down after this is all and done, and we're allowed to go back to the new normal, and come see if something will open that door behind you.
Not the door. Okay. So
Can the fern move?
Yeah.
See, that's clearly paranormal. Ferns don't move like that on their own.
The rest of the building is paranormally spectacular. Let me assure you. Like the rest of the building it's old school and kind of industrial era, very creepy. It's a neat place. It's a very cool place.
I've really been, honestly, because I've worked here by myself, I've kind of become fascinated in so what is the history of this? Because I think it started off as more of like a warehouse, but in the basement we have
it's always the basement.
Of course it is. And it is creepy as all get out down there, and we call it
quite a
catacombs.
basement. I'll be honest with you.
It's what?
It's quite a basement. I'll be honest. It's something else down there.
I like it.
I had to take some storage stuff down, and I called one of my coworkers. I was like, "You're staying on the phone with me while I'm down here, just so you know."
Well, you just have to say the word, and this is a shameless self-promotion here, but we don't charge. It's totally confidential, so you can edit this out before you air it. But we do not make any of that public.
Yeah.
And we have got Wendy and Sam. I mean, Sam's a librarian, and they would be chomping at the bit to dig into the history of that building. And perhaps more importantly is that we encourage, especially if you guys have had experiences there, to take part in the investigation. We won't make you bait. The only thing that we do is, because it's actually, going back to what I was talking about, it's somewhat empowering. Yeah. And most people are like, who've had experiences there, we will use that to try to hone in on specific areas and see if we can figure out what's going on. But we also find that it takes the fear aspect out of it, because when you start to see how we sort of take a pseudoscientific approach to how we do investigations, as opposed to, we do have people that say, oh, I feel something tingly, but that to us isn't evidence. We want to have a multitude of evidence compiled up against. So if you felt tingly in one area, we would want the equipment to sort of react to that. And we would also want historical documentation that something happened there to really boost it. But people, we have done several libraries that I won't talk about specifics, even though I probably could, that one library in particular, one of the ghosts was supposed to be one of the head librarians, who was unfortunately, and was documented, murdered in the building. So we brought Sam, not only because she's a great investigator, but because she's a librarian. We had other female librarians go out there on the investigation, and we had them just sit and talk about library things, but it's the same idea that if the ghost was there, and if it was the ghost of a librarian who had passed, she might feel more comfortable making her presence known if she is among peers. So the fact that you guys are people that spend time in the building, they might know you, as opposed to, who are these guys with all this fancy equipment? I'm not talking to them. So shameless plug over, but no, in all seriousness, I know that, Josh is giving me, kicks over the internet right now. He's like, say something, but we would be honored to actually come in and do it, an investigation at any point,
I would be fascinated by it. I mean, it's, for me, again, I joke, like, the biggest thing for me is I don't want to be scared. And the ghosts have absolutely respected that. I'm like, I'm not going to get in your way if you will please just not show yourself so I can work here in peace. But what's interesting during this time is that those of us that are still in the building have been noticing more little things happening. And the thought is that they're disappointed because we're not doing theater right now. There's no kids in the building. There's no audiences. There's no shows. There's no lights.
They're bored.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, we're doing little things here, mostly over camera, as we do, but no, they've always seemed to take care of us and kept us safe. One of the gals that does the lighting here, she said it was made very clear to her one night, it's time to go. That it was time for her to go home. And, it's just sort of odd that it's like, now there's more stuff happening because there's nobody here. And that, I mean, is that fairly, like they kind of want to be seen sometimes, or heard, or acknowledged? Or
again, put yourself in the ghost shoes. If this is a ghost of someone who has decided to stay there, it's probably because they were somehow connected to the theater, maybe not even as an actor or an actress, or, or a stagehand, but maybe somebody who just, that was where they like to come to actually see performances. So it might not be somebody that's directly, it could be a patron. But if you want to, and I should have prefaced this, but these are one of my infamous 2-bottle conversations. You need 2 bottles of really good wine to dig deep in this, unpack it all together. But if you think about that, so they are choosing there because they like the environment. They like being there. And you said it yourself, it's not the same. Where's the excitement? Because it's not there. And who's to say whether this ghost knows what a global pandemic is? I mean, I'm being somewhat sarcastic, but also, they might not know. They're like, where's the laughter and the excitement? All these things that, that I came here for. There's also that theory, when Josh talked about that you can't destroy energy, you can change its form, but there is a theory that a ghost, in order to manifest or do what it wants to do, it needs to draw energy out of the environment, which is where sometimes you will hear people talk about, there's cold spots. It's because the idea that the ghost is drawn the energy in the form of heat out of an area. That's a theory, but it's the idea that it's quite common where people will say, use our energy, use my energy to do what you want to do. If you think about a performance that's taking place, there's a lot of energy in that room that the ghosts might have been totally into, because they're like, man, I can chew on all kinds of stuff here. And, and now that's gone.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really surprise me that that they're trying to make themselves known, because I've also found that it's quite common that I equate ghost activity to like a small child. They're trying to get your attention. They call your name. You don't pay attention. Next thing you know, they're pulling on your pant leg, trying to get your attention. You're still not paying attention. Well, they're going to chuck some things across the room until you finally acknowledge them. Yeah. So it makes total sense to me that there is more activity sort of taking place. This, because they're kind of like, where is everybody?
It's so weird. I was downstairs with one of my coworkers, and out of nowhere, with nothing prompted, moved, a glass jar fell off of a different part of a shelf. And so she immediately goes, Aggie, stop. Agnes is who this theater is named after. So we frequently talk to Agnes. Supposedly in the other theater was a stagehand who hung himself. So that one's a little more tragic. We stay out of that space quite a bit in general right now, but it's just interesting how we have two different theaters, and it's almost like occupied two different spaces. Is that this? Okay, this is another weird question because I just don't get it, but I'm fascinated. Do ghosts know of other ghosts there?
That's a 2-bottle conversation right there.
I think in some instances they do.
Okay.
Because we've picked up on, and again, every location's different. Every, energy that building has, you have to take, everything into, kind of account and effect. But there's been a few buildings that we've been in that we've captured audio of, it's two people clearly having a conversation with each other. Going back to to Mansfield so many times, there are spirits up in, it's like the attic part of the building that, I'm convinced that, there's multiple there. They interact with each other. It's almost like they're formulating their plan of attack on everybody that's there, kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, there's no way that, just one of them can cause that much ruckus and do everything that's going on. But me personally, I do believe in some instances, they do know of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when Josh was talking about the sort of the two-way conversation, we're not really a big fan of where, if you can't really understand what they're saying, and slow it down and do that. If you manipulate it, then you start hearing things when there's nothing there. But there have been instances where you hear two distinctly different voices, and they are carrying on a conversation where both parts are in context. So it's almost like a call and response. So it's not as if you're picking up just random things. We also, which I think further makes it that there's two instances that come to my mind where we got this sort of two-way conversation, and those were recorded off of our studio microphones, which those we actually hardwire into a mixing board.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're using a wireless device that could be pulling a stray signal out of somewhere. But the weird thing is, when we go back and we analyze it, because we're like, those sound like voices. It sounds like they're saying this. When we look at them, what is totally bizarre is you can look at the voice patterns and you can determine that they fall within the range of a human voice, and yet they don't match the voice pattern of anybody else on the investigation at the time. Right. So these are two different voice patterns that are having a conversation, and they don't match anybody that's there in the room at the time. So you're like, where is that coming from? It does clearly sound, though, that it's like two people just having a conversation.
Okay.
But then it begs the thing that do they know each other are there, but they don't realize we're there.
Right.
That's the stuff that really interests me, because I'm a bit of a tech guy. That's my job on the show, is to kind of make the show happen. So it's like, microphones and cameras and all that stuff. Like, that's my life. But like, I've always had a fascination with this stuff as well. So it's like, I guess, like, to me, like, what kind of gear do you guys typically roll out with? You say studio microphones. I've got studio microphones, things like that. What do you guys use?
We use the Verilux microphones we put shock mounts on them. and we have got a, trying to see the number. It's a Korg mixing board. It's a D888. I think
you don't have to give me like some
yeah.
specs
It's
or anything
I'm
like
sorry.
that. No, I get that. No,
You said you were into that stuff. Yeah.
Do you guys like? Do you do cameras? Do you do? I mean, what all do you guys do?
We take, and again, going back to the idea that I don't think we've got the one piece of equipment that works the whole time. So we will have everything from, in addition to having our studio microphones that are hardwired, we'll go in with digital voice recorders. We even did an experiment at one place where we took everything from a full-blown cassette, like boombox recorder, a micro cassette recorder. We will bring everything from Polaroid cameras to digital cameras, 35 millimeter. We will use video cameras, infrared. We'll have infrared extenders on that. And then we'll use the basic, there's a whole range of that usually fall into EMF detectors, which is electromagnetic field, which is basically a real field of energy, but it's anything that's got an electric or a magnetic charge. Those are the things that flash and do those crazy things. We'll use an array of those, but what we're looking for is a spike that doesn't make sense. I mean, you'll see them on the shows, they walk around and they wave them around. Well, the battery's going to move around inside and it's going to make the EMF fluctuate. So we will set them on tables and see, and most of the time they don't do anything, but we're looking for weird fluctuations that if it does happen, say in a specific area, we'll then say, well, is there wiring in that wall? Is there, something going on there? We've even used, gosh, Josh, what else do we use? We use the, we've tried that camera that's all the rage now, the Connects, which is that makes the 3D stick figure. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those. I still think they have applications within the Ghosts of Ohio, but the Ghost shows use them because if you haven't seen them, they say that it's a camera and they point it at things, and then all of a sudden a stick figure will appear where there's nothing, and they'll say it's a ghost, and the ghost is usually floating in the air, or, oh my God, it's right there and there's nothing there, it's a ghost. And the technology,
you say the Connect, this is like the Microsoft Xbox Connect, or
yes.
Oh,
and
that's
so
a reliable piece of equipment. Sure.
Well, yeah, and what they do with it is, what we do is we try not to break the equipment, but when we get it, we crack it open and we're like, what is this thing really doing? And Ben, you're exactly right. What the Connect is designed to do is, for like Madden football and things like that, it is designed to find something and plot it out in human form. So it's basically, for like Madden football, it's looking that when somebody standing in front of it is running, it's trying to find its legs. And when it finds a leg, then it looks for a foot, and then it connects it that way. So it's designed to look at nothing and find human figures. So what we found is that a good example would be like your staircase behind you, Ben. If we put the camera on you and turned it off, it would find you right away, but then it would probably try to turn each one of those spindles into a torso.
Sure.
And then it would stretch out and try to find, and it's not that there's a ghost there. So it's, but it looks spooky on these ghost shows. Now, what we have done with it, where I still think there's applications for us, and it hasn't been successful, which makes me think we can use it, is once you let the camera sit for a while and focus on that same area, it'll calm down and it'll say, okay, those spindles are just spindles. It's not a person. And so what we've done is locked it down on a tripod and pointed it down an empty hallway, let it freak out for a little bit, and then just let it record. What we're hoping is that after, say, 4 or 5 hours, it suddenly in that empty hallway picks up on something moving when there's nothing there. It hasn't done that yet. But again, by and large, that's equipment that we've tried and then went, yeah, this really doesn't do what it's supposed to. So yeah, it's a wide, we will watch these ghost shows to see what they're doing and what they're using. And then, like I say, we'll go and we'll get one, break it open, and then go, okay, this is not. doing
Well, I
what
mean,
it's
give
supposed
it a shot. Sure. I mean, anything you can use to collect whatever you can. I mean, I think I like the approach of, Polaroids and everything like that. Film works differently than digital CCDs do. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense that might capture something that's, I don't know, not visible in a different spectrum or something like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, a fascinating thing about the cameras specifically is that still to this day, people will talk about ghost orbs that, I took a picture and I got a ghost orb. If you look at the history of spirit photography, which is weird because there's actually books on that, but the original ghosts that people were supposedly capturing that weren't faked, but they looked like people. There were no orbs. These ghost orbs popped up right around the advent of digital cameras because it was the way that they were processing. And, I mean, we were all excited when we got our first digital camera, when we take a picture and it would say processing, 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 and you'd go have a sandwich and come back and you got a picture and it had all these dots on it because like you said, Ben, it's totally different with the way that you take a picture with a digital camera versus a 35 millimeter. You're not burning onto the negative. And what we used to do, which was great fun. My wife thought I was crazy, but well, she still does, but not because of this. But we would tell people, if you get something weird with a digital picture, keep taking pictures to see if it's in all of them. But if you're specifically going to take a digital camera to try to find ghosts, you're in the perfect testing ground for a digital camera. Ohio, the weather changes every 15 minutes. So go outside when the sun is out and take 8 or 10 pictures with the flash, without the flash, then wait 15 minutes to where it's suddenly snowing in August and take pictures again and see what reflections happen off of snow. What happens with raindrops? I would go out, and this is where my wife thought I was kind of crazy. I would go out into the garage and sweep it up and then take it and throw the dust and the dirt up in the air and take pictures with the digital camera, because then I could see what dust particles look like. Yeah. And we tell people do that because then when you get something weird, you kind of have something you can compare it to and say, okay, you know what? It is dust, or no, it's not dust. It's not this. And that's the way I think it's easy to approach, as opposed to saying, oh, that's weird, ghost, like on the ghost shows. I wish I could do that. You hear a weird noise. They're like, that's a ghost, moving on, as opposed to Josh and I have to go, well, let's go back and recreate it and let's do this. But
yeah, no, I could rap about tech. It would probably get very boring very quickly.
You would be surprised. It would not.
I didn't know Ben was a rapper. I'm glad that after
I am.
Right.
I am.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, I want to keep going, but I know we all have children and jobs and such that, yeah, I should probably go home to my kids at some point tonight. But tell us, I guess my last question for you is, are you able to do anything in this time, in this COVID time?
By and large, no. It's we have had a couple of our sort of public ghost hunts that we had actually put our deposits down on for, one of which was an old opera house. But because those are not able to function as their normal business, right, no, we can't go in there. The private investigations, we are still moving forward with those with regard to people keeping their journals. They can still communicate with us. We've done conference calls with them and stuff, as opposed to actually going out there. We probably could, and there are a few places that are allowing people to go back into, but it's just, again, going back to, we want to kind of be respectful. And I think not only are ghosts a big unknown, but what is actually going on right now is an even bigger unknown. So we're kind of staying busy with just walking people through things right now. The good news is that whenever this finally gets lifted, there are a lot of places that we can actually go to and get back into it, because we're all sort of chomping at the ghostly bit to get out there again.
I get it. Well, and I'm thrilled that when we do finally get to meet in person here for you investigating ghosts, that means our theaters will be reopened again too. So
yeah, indeed.
Like,
Well, no, we should definitely have you guys out to do the CPAC, and when you do that, I'll bring my equipment too, and we'll double everything up.
That would be
sounds awesome.
totally cool.
Yeah.
It's, as I said, it's the idea that that's your guy's second home. So if anything, the ghosts are going to know you more than they're going to know us. Yeah. And part of a thing that we go into is, a lot of times on these ghost shows, they'll say things like, talk into this microphone or and we had our 2-bottle conversation, which was like, well, what if they don't know what a microphone is? And so we started saying, we started using candles, and we're like, can you move the candle flame, or getting a bowl of water, because we figure no matter what time period you're from, you know what water is, hopefully. So the idea that you're bringing familiar faces in, I think, going back to like the Thurber house, you can actually make it a happier place. And the fact that if you're opening back up and you're getting that energy back in there, I would not be surprised if there's a couple of ghosts in there that want to say a thing or two.
Or sing. I mean, wouldn't that be cool?
We've actually captured that before, which, it was at the opera house that we went to, that there was a man singing on the stage. And the most amazing thing, I'll have to dig the file out and I'll send it to you guys, because we keep trying to find somebody who can identify the tune.
My mom's an opera singer.
It's a man singing, and he is clear. There are clearly notes. Yeah. I'm not going to embarrass everybody by trying to do it, but it's probably no. There's just tea in here. It's not going to do it. But there's probably. Have you heard it, Josh?
It's been a while.
But I want to say that there's at least 7 or 8 notes, and there's a fluctuation in the pitch. And we were up in the catwalk when that happened and did not hear it. And it was like at 2:30 in the morning. There was nobody in there except us. So I'll dig it out, see if she can.
Yeah, send it, because Mom's an opera singer, but I also have a good friend who was my music director for my show here at the CPAC, who's also a male opera singer, who may be able to identify that.
All right,
awesome.
There you go. So,
and Ben, if you're into like cleaning up audio, I can send you clips too. If that's.
Oh man, I do a lot of cleaning up of audio. So yeah, time is the thing, but yeah, no, I would love to hear some EVP and some other stuff too, and see whatever evidence you guys have. I'm into it. So
yeah, I mean, it's cool. But yeah, because there's the one that I can think of is there was one from the Oliver House up near Toledo that I was doing an investigation solo. It was for one of my books, and I had set a microphone up, and it was just me and the lady that was helping me sort of set things up. And I put the headphones on to try to hear, and it was in the haunted hallway, but there was an air conditioning, a blower that was on, and it was just so loud. And I was like, is there any way we can turn that off? And she's like, no, it's automatic. So we ended up, I didn't even listen to any of that until about 2 years later when I was archiving anything. And there is somebody whistling a song, not like coming through a vent kind of that. It's got pitches going up, but it's got this fan noise over the top of it that we can't pull it apart enough. But it probably goes on for about 35 seconds. Oh, and it's a tune, and there's a rise and fall to it. And so
what sort of software are you rocking on that?
See, I don't know how
geeky this show's about to get. I'm sorry, Krista.
I'm trying to think that I know I went aside because I can do Audacity and then I fall by the wayside, but I want to. Is there a Pro Tools?
Pro Tools is a software that is used usually it's like music production, that kind of thing. I use Audition, which is the part of the Adobe Creative Suite, and it's kind of like, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast right now, I'm using it. So I mean, it's all kind of really the same software, just different names on it and looks and feels, that kind of thing.
Josh, do you know what Mark was using?
I want to say it was Pro Tools, because I know that we had
Pro
the conversation.
And Audacity, I think, are probably the most entry level. Most people tend to get them with, like, you buy your microphone, you get a free copy of Pro Tools or something like that. So
yeah, because I know we had the conversation too. Because me and my wife, we use WavePad for everything. but I don't know if that's what Mark was talking about or not. But I want to say it was Pro Tools. I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was. I could be wrong, but I can find out if you're at all interested in it.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to. That sounds cool.
What?
Did that not come through? I'm sorry. Yeah. No. I'd love to. That sounds cool. I thought I hit mute.
This is why he's here is legit. I couldn't have a podcast if Ben weren't here because I don't know what the crap any of this stuff is. So, yeah, I just talk.
He's lost, just a lost child most of the time. So, surrounded by ghosts in the haunted CPAC right now.
See, that's awesome.
I had to. I'm sorry.
See, where else would you rather be? You know.
I can think of several places. It is coronavirus after all, but. So to finalize things, is there anything I should be doing here in the CPAC for the ghosts in this time? Any recommendations of what I should be doing for them?
I don't know if there is anything more that you can really be doing because you've kind of acknowledged them. I don't think you can bring more people in.
No.
I mean, to put it another way, I think Josh would agree that if there was something negative there, you would know.
Okay.
So I think there's no denying. And I mean, that happens so rarely. So I'm telling you that because I don't want you to be scared of it. And if the fact that you're just acknowledging it and they're kind of cool with it, I think you just keep doing that. I mean, I would say that if you feel like you want to talk to it more, you can.
I'm good.
But if you don't, as long as you've acknowledged it, I mean, it's fine. You know, I mean, you could tell them that we're coming eventually. Or you can tell them the people are coming back. That's probably what they want.
Krista, do you need somebody to run scenes with you? Because that could be helpful, right?
I want to do a scene with a ghost, okay?
Why wouldn't you? That sounds rad.
I think we got to get Ben an application of the Ghosts of Ohio, Josh.
He's in.
If the ghosts want a scene partner, I'm fine with that. But I need time to pick out a script. I need to know what ages we're looking at because that's really going to settle on our material here. So it's going to take some work. I'm already doing a lot of work. I don't want to do scene work with a ghost right now. I'm tired.
Especially if it has like choreography or something like that. Then that's a definite.
No.
Here's a weird thing though. Is it possible that while you're there, you can just play music?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Like over in a particular area or just in general?
Just in general. But if you could do it throughout the entire thing, I mean, because again, you're bringing back sort of a theater-like experience.
That's true. I play music.
I'm going to suggest Cisco's The Thong Song on repeat at like top volume for just hours.
So everyone can hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to pretend I don't understand any of those words. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
I think then the ghost would be angry, and we don't want to do that because then I would be angry listening to that song. Anyway.
It might elicit a response. Let's put it that way.
That's true. That's true. No, that's an interesting idea just to have, because I mean we have used the space a little bit and put on. I did a little demo video in our main theater in the shed, and we did play music through it, and it was just there was this overwhelming sense for me of just like elation. So.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, anything you can do to try to like pump energy back into the space and back into the building. I mean, but I think music would be a perfect starting point. Maybe try different styles of music. Maybe Broadway music. Theater music. Just just take note of things you might notice or things you see, things you feel, and just kind of see. I mean, the more responsive you are, and the more that you kind of put it out there to them, like, "Hey, I acknowledge you. I know you're here." It really starts to change a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
It gets really trippy, but you could even go because you mentioned about the guy who committed suicide. If he was a real person and they believe that he's still there, find out when he lived, and maybe play music from that time period and see what happens, or if there are other spirits there that are tied to a specific time period, or, what were the plays that would have been taking place there, and try doing that. We did a really interesting experiment, which I think worked. It was at the library where the head librarian was murdered. We found when we were doing the research that her son became who was sadly there at the time where she was shot in the building, that he grew up and became a somewhat famous sort of vaudeville singer, banjo player or something. And it's a long-winded story that I'll cut short, but I had actually inherited a 1926 Victrola that I was fixing up, and found that in 1926, her son had recorded a song that he sang, but I don't remember, the original version was about, oh, how I miss my something, but he changed the title and the words to, oh, how I miss my mother. And we went in there and I played it on the Victrola and recorded it and turned it into MP3. And we went out, the librarian's name was Lida, and we started the investigation by saying, like, Lida, we heard what happened to you. It was incredibly sad. And we don't know if you found out what happened to your son, but he ended up being fine. He became famous, and we don't know if you were ever able to hear his music. And so we played it over and over again, to the point where Wendy, one of our investigators, was like, we're not playing that again. But the weird thing is that when we were doing a session a second time and we didn't play the music, and Josh, you'll have to correct me because I'm probably going to butcher it, but Josh was actually listening through headphones through a spirit box, which was basically just static. Yeah. And he was just saying anything that he heard. And was it that a voice said, where's the music?
Yeah, there was a voice that came through. It was real pause, but it was like, where's the music?
Oh.
And so we were like, so Josh said that, and we were like, do you want us to play the music? And of course, Wendy was like, we're not putting, because it was very Shining-esque, because it was all this like distorted going through a dark library. But we played it, and we ended up getting weird. That night, there was, Ben, you'll like this story, but I can't tell all of it. But basically, only one of our microphones, it was like there was a cut in on that microphone. The other three microphones kept recording. There was a cut in, and it was like somebody punched in and said something right up against the microphone, and then there was a punch out. The voice sounded very much like Wendy, and who was one of our investigators, except when we looked at it, it was similar to Wendy, but it wasn't Wendy. And Wendy was nowhere near that microphone when it happened.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a whole, that place, all kinds of crazy things happened, because I heard Wendy laughing and she never laughed. And when you go back and listen to it, we call it the Wendy laugh, because it's similar to Wendy, but it's not her.
Wow.
And you hear me in one point on another microphone saying, no, what's it set on? But I'm not in that room.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've seen microphones and recording systems do weird stuff anyway, and like, that's where like the intrigue for me lives, like, because I mean, like, I'll have one day where I'll go to my studio and have no problems with any kind of technology whatsoever. Weeks will go by and no problems with technology, and then one day every piece of technology turns against me, and it's like everything that I'm trying to do doesn't work right, or all kinds of weird problems bleed in and stuff like that. But like, and I've seen tech do some weird stuff. So yeah, I mean, is that paranormal? Maybe not, but like it's there's enough there that if
you're exactly right. Is it the ghost in the machine, or is it really a ghost? And that's because we spent hours going back over all of the audio from that night, trying to say, because our mixing board has got a built-in hard drive, so it just goes right into the hard drive. So we went back and listened to see if at any point during the night did I say, no, what's it set on, and it somehow managed to freak out and it picked up an artifact and threw it in there. I never said it, but that was on, and this is where I'm like, I can't believe I did this, but it was actually on the hard drive with like 5 other investigations. So I sat, madness, and listen to all of them, 4 studio microphones, 5 investigate, to see if I ever said that. And I never did, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't have been something weird that happened that just stuck it there. But again, those are the questions that we're trying to answer. And that's the thrill of the chase, goes back to that.
Yep. I dig it. That's cool.
Oh my gosh. You guys have been so much fun. Thank you. Honestly, I love the fact that we're done with this, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not scared, because it is something like your mind gets worked up, and I have probably, as you can assume as an actor, a very overactive imagination. So it's, I think that's where a lot of the fear comes in, but just the idea of playing music for them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think they would love that.
Oh, absolutely.
I would too, so how can people find you? How can people get in touch with you and learn a little bit more if they'd like to do so?
Yes, plug your books and everything too.
Yeah.
The easiest way is our website is ghostsofOhio.org. We're all on the Twitter and the Facebook and all that kind of stuff. If they're interested in me as a weird person, it's strangeandspookyworld.com. So there you're still going to get the ghost stuff, but you're also going to get UFOs and monsters and all kinds of stuff, because it's something that's very endearing to me about Ohio, is that when I was moving here and I said to somebody, I've never lived in Ohio, what can you tell me about Ohio? And this was the response I got, which struck me so much that it became the introduction to my book, Weird Ohio. But what they told me was, I don't know, I think a lot of people drive through Ohio. And I immediately thought, well, great, but Ohio is just a weird state. And what I love about it is we're proud to be weird. I've written a couple of books for the Weird series, so like Weird Indiana, and Ohioans are proud to be weird. And it's a great thing, because you can just go up to somebody and they'll be like, tell me something weird about Ohio. And they love sharing stories about weird things. And so strangeandspookyworld.com is where you'll be able to find all of my books and find out if, there really was a UFO crash in Roswell that made its way to Dayton, Ohio, and all that kind of fun stuff. It's a weird state. It really is. Or, if you're looking for my books, Amazon has got them all. Or the best part is that if you type Weird Willis into a search engine, you'll fall down a very strange and deep rabbit hole. But Ghosts of Ohio, same thing. If you type in Ghosts of Ohio, you'll find us.
And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter.
Oh yes, our newsletter. And there's a big one coming out for our Halloween issue. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, if you go to ghostsofohio.org, you can sign up for our free newsletter. We send it out every other month. I think we're pushing 4,000 subscribers, but it's free, and it's got everything from book reviews, movie reviews. Josh has done a series of interviews with famous people in the field. We did somebody that was actually putting out a paranormal based game that they have. We do, like I said, book reviews, movie reviews, equipment reviews. And if it wasn't a global pandemic, it would have a list of all the different places we were doing public ghost hunts as well as presentations. So you'd get the chance to come out and meet us and get to hear all of our weird evidence, that, stuff that we can't explain. And that to me is always what it's about, is because I found that no matter how many years I've done this, I've found out that it doesn't matter whether or not you believe in ghosts or not, but everybody's got a story to tell you about them. So we will meet people that are like, I can't believe you look for ghosts. That's ridiculous. They don't exist. But, there was this one time that my uncle, and then they tell you the scariest story. So I think that's a great thing that I can't wait for us to get back out there and start doing our presentations again, because the best part about telling a ghost story and sharing your experience is sharing them with people. And it's just like you're around that ghostly campfire and you're swapping stories. And that's really what this is all about, just telling stories and just sitting there and having your 2-bottle conversation and wondering what is out there. Because that's what keeps me going, because if nothing else, ghosts confirm to me that there's something after this. You know, there's something that follows. I don't know what it is, but I really think there is something that comes after this. Otherwise, I'm going to really feel like I got ripped off here. So if nothing else, it makes me believe there's something better coming.
That's awesome. You guys have been a downright blast. Thank you so much for coming on our little podcast.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thanks, Josh.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, I look forward to the day that we can actually hang out and do this for real again.
Yeah, and start keeping a journal now. If anything happen, if things start happening, doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just date, time, and what happened. And if you want, I can set Wendy and Sam loose and have them start trying to dig into the history of the building.
By all
we give you anything we get. We don't share it with anybody, but you'll get copies. And
we've actually been talking.
Oh, I must fell out of my chair. Did you see that?
He's so excited.
I was.
So after my podcast, you're going to have nightmares tonight, and you're going to have vertigo. So that's great.
Okay.
We actually have been in discussion about, I'm trying to put together the history of the CPAC and speak with former actors that are well into retirement now, but just sort of their experiences with it over the years and how the building has changed. I'm fascinated by the history of this place. So my boss said, go ahead. So we'll see. I teach a lot of children, and I have too. And I'm exhausted most of the time, so it's going to be a long process. But yeah, I think that would be a really cool place to start too. So, but thank you guys.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Happy Halloween too.
Indeed.
So if you like what you're hearing, subscribe. We are on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes. We're on the YouTube. We're on the Facebook. I joined Twitter. I still don't get it. I'm gonna figure it out. But nobody needs to hear what
Twitter is just endless hot takes forever. That's what
it is, really.
Hot takes with hashtags.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh,
sounds like a bad breakfast.
But thank you all for listening to Speak Easily, and
yeah, let me know when you're going to run this, and I'll push it out on all the.
It'll be.
I'll even put it on Twitter
when we're going up. So
what's that?
Yeah, it'll be next Tuesday when it goes.
Okay.
So yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to get you guys up before Halloween, so
yeah.
You can promote the Spook Easily podcast.
Ah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that one. I don't know.
You should be.
I do the dad jokes in my house, so that's Well, thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. We really appreciate it so much.
Okay. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Boxland Media. Think big.